Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. This is the Monday, January 28th meeting of the Clinton School Committee. I'd like to start with an approval of the bills. Can we have a motion to accept the warrant?
I'll make a motion to approve the bills.
I'll second.
Thank you. Motion being made and seconded. Is there any discussion? There being none, all those in favor? Thank you. Unanimous. Can we have a motion to approve the minutes from the meeting of January 14th?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Motion being made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the minutes from January 14th? There being none, all those in favor? Approved unanimously. Thank you. I believe we have a student representative here tonight. Good evening, Charles.
Good evening. First off, congratulations to senior varsity basketball captain Nelisha Manure, who scored her 1,000th point at last week's game against Oakmont. She has been on the road to this momentous accomplishment for her entire high school career and was surrounded by her teammates and friends as she made her final shot. As the sixth girl in school history to reach this milestone, all of CHS is proud of her and will push her and the rest of her team towards a successful season. Plans are being made for the school's basketball players to attend the middle school during lunches within the next couple of weeks, just as our football players and cheerleaders did a few months back, in order to interact with the younger students and allow them to meet the big leagues. As spring sports are preparing for the new sports season, recruitment has started for everyone, including the co-ed lacrosse team with Hudson High School. Second semester has begun here at CHS, with students easing into their half-year classes and electives. Registration will begin for courses next year, and in the coming weeks, our guidance counselors will be going to the middle school for 8th grade students, and then we'll meet with our freshmen, sophomores, and juniors to pick their classes. Ms. Catherine Meifert and Ms. Meredith Charles have been working very hard with a variety of students over the past weeks to create a play to be performed at the elementary school tomorrow, January 29th. The play will deal with themes of growing one's personal image and self-confidence. Mrs. Meifert will also be joined by Ms. Gent in the upcoming production of High School Musical, put on as CHS's all-school play. Practices will continue into April with performances that will take place from April 4th through the 6th. Clinton High School will be hosting its annual open house this Wednesday, January 30th, from 6 to 8 p.m. Teachers will be in their classrooms throughout the school, welcoming students and parents from the 5th through 12th grade and ready to show what makes CHS so unique in its education. Sports teams and clubs will also be showcasing their presence by setting up student-run tables in the cafeteria, which parents and students can approach to ask questions and even sign up. Outside the caf, the student council will be selling homemade cookies. The basketball teams will be hosting practice in the gym, and the robotics team will be under the full weight of the build season as they continue to construct and program a working machine for competition. The members of Gale Force will continue to benefit from the centralization of their work at the high school this year, allowing the students to work far into the night, all on full display for Wednesday. Thank you.
Thank you, Charles.
Charles.
Thank you very much. Do we have a representative from the PTA tonight?
Hi.
Hi, Kelly.
I only have a couple of things. We changed our meeting. We typically meet the second Thursday of each month, but we're due to Valentine's Day. We're changing it to February 7th. It will be at the CES Library at 6:30 p.m. Everyone's welcome. We also are working on a fundraiser, a bingo fundraiser on Saturday, March 30th. We got the Elks was donated to us, and we have a subcommittee in the works, and we will be working on that and getting that to you. That's all I have for PTA.
Thank you.
And then for CPAC, our meeting is next Tuesday, the 5th. And we are selling these keychains that hold lip balm for $5. It's to go towards getting a speaker later on in the year, and they're $5. If anyone's interested, they can reach out to me or anyone on the board. And our March meeting will be basic rights, and our April meeting will be having a discussion about ABA and autism. And we're hoping to get executive functioning in before the end of the year, too.
That's great. Any questions? Thank you very much for all your
Thanks.
good work. Is there anything from the CTA tonight? Thank you. Is there any public comment? As always, we'll revisit it at the end of the meeting if need be. Now, ladies and gentlemen, for the reason that you're likely here, we have our celebrations, and so I'll turn the proceedings over to first CES Student of the Month. So is Mr. Rulo here? Mr. Rulo, you're presenting tonight?
Pardon me?
You're presenting
I am presenting
the CES
tonight.
Student of the Month.
I am. I have a young lady that I'd like to bring up here. Her name is Ava Castrotero. Come on over, Ava. Ava is a third grade student at CES, and she was working on a paper in order to have Mr. Rulo give a second recess to all the students of the school.
Okay.
So a nice persuasive essay, and if opportunity, you want to try to read this? She would like to read this and maybe convince the school
Ava, have a
committee
seat.
In order to come on over here.
Chair
I
recognizes
think
Ava.
maybe better than me speaking, I think Ava can tell us all
Okay.
about it.
Oh man. Do you think we could get a second recess? We're working on persuading and writing, and I choose you. Here are some reasons why we should get a second recess. The first reason why is because, well, we need exercise. We need it to keep us healthy. Here are some examples of how it keeps us healthy. We can run, jump, dance, do some sports, go on the structure, and play some really fun games. Now on to the next paragraph about break. The second reason why we deserve a second recess is to have a break. We work hard in all of our subjects. Let me name a few. Math, comprehension, foundations, science, social studies, and writing. Also, we learn non-stop. We learn 6 hours total. But if you must know, I keep working even when I get home. I take what Mrs. Flint teaches us and I practice. I once started my writing all by myself the day she introduced it and started it on my own. I even have a picture to prove it. How's that for working hard? And just imagine how exhausted we would be if we had a second recess. I bet we would be so tired from playing, we wouldn't even talk. We also do so much math. I mean, we have 3 periods of it all together, and about 3 hours of it total. Just for math. Is that crazy, right? Now on to the next paragraph about how we earned it. This year, I think we earned another recess by getting so many honey tickets. This year, we got around 600 honey tickets the first time. We also get squares, and if we get picked, we could earn another recess. Those are some reasons why you can give us a second recess. Did I persuade you? Did I convince you? Are my reasons strong enough? There's a problem, and I'm trying to solve it. I hope you loved it. P.S. Thank you for your time and consideration.
So, Ava, let me just say, on behalf of the entire school committee, what a wonderful job you did advocating for a position you obviously feel very strongly about. And may I just say, I'm grateful that the school committee doesn't get into procedures when it comes to Clinton Elementary School. So I will direct the superintendent to have a conversation with Mr. Rulo about ways to solve that particular problem. But anytime you want to come to one of these meetings, I'm sure we'll make sure there's a chair for you. Well done. Congratulations.
So with that, I want to give Ava her certificate of achievement in order to being a representative of the Clinton Elementary School. And we want to thank all of our teachers for everything she's done. Ava is a fantastic representation of what is being produced at all the school districts in Clinton. So from us to her, congratulations, Ava, and great job. And we were taking your problem and trying to solve it when the superintendent and I meet in the next couple of days, okay? Congratulations, honey. All right, you go on over and you're gonna shake right there.
Shake my hand, I'll give you this too. Congratulations. And then you can shake their hands, okay?
Great job.
I see her as a future student rep for
You got my
mine.
vote, okay?
I was gonna say future principal for you.
You might already have that. Good thing that was part of the persuasive essay.
Outstanding, thank you. And Clinton Middle School has a Student of the Month that they'd like to recognize as well. Mr. Seed, Mrs. Sargent, floor is yours.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. Good evening.
Our student tonight is our student ambassador to Project 351. And to become the student ambassador for the Clinton Middle School for this project, you'd have to be recommended by your 8th grade teachers, which he received all nominations from his 8th grade teachers for his leadership, hard work, and responsibility. And it certainly shows on this one day that he goes and meets up with thousands of other 8th grade students. And I would like to invite Max Sullivan up here to talk to you a little bit about his experience
Okay.
with this project.
Max, are you comfortable sitting here?
Project 351 it's an awesome way to help with the community and make sure that we can help everybody that is in need or anybody that's not as fortunate as us. And on launch day, we met up, we learned a lot of things from people that have very inspiring stories, like Joanne and Christopher, and we met with the governor, and it was just an awesome experience to be able to work and have fun, meet people that have done great in school, have always had like the ability to help other people and always wanted to. And it's awesome that we can all come in one community and help others. And it's just inspiring to see how we can help so many people in just such a little amount of time, because we have hundreds of kids working together and making food and making different cards for people that are working to help homeless people. And it's just really, I don't know, it's just really cool that we can all help somebody and still have fun doing it. We can all make new friends and learn everybody else's stories from across the state. And it's just really nice that we can all help other people and help the people that are helping other people.
Right.
Then we can, well, I made food
Uh-huh.
and I made enchiladas and salad for people that didn't have enough food on the nights of the storms. And we got to meet a lot of the people that were struggling and trying to get back on their feet after years of living out on the streets. And it really touched me, hearing that people that are having such a hard time in life are still being able to get a job or even get help, because that's such an important step in getting back to being able to make money, is just learning that you need help. And we went to a shelter that keeps people nice and warm overnight, and they can have housing programs that they can go to for assisted rent. And it's really cool that people want to do that and not be forced to help with service. And it's really nice that we have tons of people in Massachusetts that want to help from such a young age and that want to end up being leaders in their community and help everybody else out, because we need that leadership, and because if we don't have it, then nothing gets done. And it's really nice that we can all unite and help each other out and help everybody that needs help out.
So it sounded like it was a life-changing experience for you.
Yeah.
And as an ambassador to Project 351, you were able to connect with all of these other ambassadors across the state and on service-oriented projects. Thank you on behalf of the Clinton School Committee for being such a wonderful example for our community and for the Commonwealth.
Thank you guys. It's been really fun and an honor to be able to be picked to do such a
I'm sure
good thing
it's
for
a
the community.
well-deserved honor.
They'll also do a project.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Congratulations, you want a little?
Thank you. So Max, I'd love to invite you back when your project is fleshed out and you figured out what you're going to do and how that works out for you and for the community.
Okay, thank you.
Great job. And from Clinton High School, Mr. Hastings, Ms. Cash.
Come up to 11, though.
Yes.
Okay.
I thought you were knitting. Okay.
This is too exciting.
How are you? How you doing? Good evening, everyone, and it's really an honor this evening to recognize our student, and I have to be very formal because it's usually JT, but I'm going to be very formal in recognizing Jacob Salvi. So Jacob, if you come up, please, and we're going to
Thoroughly embarrassed.
move. It's okay. You're used to crowds, right? Okay, and I'm going to ask Ms. Pfeiffer, who did recommend Jacob, to tell us about him. Okay?
When most people see and hear a great musician, they often say that person is very talented. When I hear that musician, my first thought is that that musician has worked incredibly hard. Music, like other disciplines, requires more than just talent to achieve great results. As the CHS band director, I have the pleasure of teaching one such hardworking musician named Jacob Selby. Jacob, known among his friends and family as JT, chooses to work incredibly hard to hone his musical skills, and his achievements prove that. Jacob qualified to participate in the Junior District Music Festivals in both 7th and 8th grade levels. Auditions for these festivals are very competitive. In his 8th grade year, he got the highest score on his instrument, the bass clarinet, and earned first chair, the distinction of the highest performing player on the instrument. And he did that with Mr. It is only Jacob's freshman year at CHS, but he has been determined to seek a very high level of musicianship here as well. Jacob not only qualified for the Senior District Festival as a freshman, a feat not often accomplished. He beat out 2 seniors for second chair. He also earned himself a recommendation to all-state auditions by scoring in the top half of auditioners, a feat equivalent to qualifying for the state track meet in his freshman year. He had to learn a brand new audition piece in just a few weeks and only missed out on the All-State Festival held at Boston Symphony Hall by 2.5 points. Oh. In the CHS band, Jacob has demonstrated an eagerness to help his bandmates and has been a mentor to a beginning saxophone player. He's very patient with less accomplished players. JT's other teachers think well of him too. Mr. Shermack describes him as a quiet, hardworking student who loves interacting with his peers during group work. Mrs. Ball also described him as conscientious and hardworking. Other teachers have described him as a good kid and said that he has a good sense of humor. I look forward to seeing Jacob mature and develop into a young man and musician who excels at all he attempts through his dedication, perseverance, and excellent work ethic. I also can't wait for next year's All-State auditions and his next chance to shine as a musical star of Clinton Public Schools. Congratulations, Jacob.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you. One of these. Thank you. I'll shake it.
Great job.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thanks for setting a great example.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
We also want to recognize a Clinton Public School Employee of the Month, but before we do that, I just want to say thank you for recognizing effort. That oftentimes we talk about talent as some kind of innate thing, when in reality, someone like Jacob, who has just worked so hard to get to where he is a great shining example, not only to represent your family, but for all of the students in the Clinton Public Schools. So keep up the good work. And Dr. Meyer. Oh, Mr. Rulo.
is going to introduce our Employee of the Month this year.
Very special Clinton Public School Employee of the Month.
Very good teachers. Ms. Paulette, very good teachers. So, ladies and gentlemen, I have the honor in order to the recognition of the Employee of the Month, Miss Debbie Vasquez. So Debbie has been nominated not by the administration, matter of fact, but more importantly, she's been recognized by her co-workers and her peers. And the educators who work every day with the children of Clinton Public School have overwhelmingly come to acknowledge the importance of Ms. Vasquez. Debbie is first to volunteer her time to the student. She works one-on-one in small groups, educating the students in all facets of the curriculum. But more importantly is how people express their thoughts about her. Kind, caring, compassionate, and giving. This is what makes Deb an amazing person and what makes her a superb representative of the Clinton Public Schools. I am honored not only to be her principal, but to actually call her my friend. We have known each other for a long while, and I am so happy no one else is more deserving than Ms. Vasquez. So congratulations, Deb, for all that you do, and thank you guys very much.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we now come to this portion of the meeting where we get into the business of running the school district. We will not be offended in the least if you decide to leave.
If you would like to step out for photos and choose not to come back, you're welcome to.
That said, Ava, if you want to launch your campaign right now, by all means. Thank you, everyone.
He's very thorough around him.
Is there anybody staying?
No. That's why you gotta. That's why we want to keep those other announcements before.
I agreed. Agreed. Agreed.
This is the way, the very
Way at the end.
under new business.
Yeah.
See who really wants that certificate.
Dr. Meyer, the floor is yours.
Okay. So the first one, we have received a retirement letter from Maggie Pollock. She's an instructional assistant at Clinton Middle School. Right now she's currently working with our, providing ESL support to some math and science classes in the middle school. She's announced that she's going to retire so that she can, her youngest daughter is expecting and she wants to spend more time helping her in that endeavor. So we wish Maggie well, and we are looking, just so the school committee is aware, in refilling that position. We are actually looking at some of the ESL numbers in the elementary school, and we may actually replace that at the elementary school. Yep. The human resources of the strategic plan that we have the update on today. So if you look at the first strategic goals, work with the town to explore a human resource manager position that will service all town employees. So we've been going through that. You guys have seen that job description. The selectmen have approved that job description. The personnel committee, personnel board has assigned sort of a classification to that position. And we are at the steps now where it is basically ready to be posted and filled. And I know that Mary has been working with Mike. We're trying to hopefully post that through School Spring so we can help manage the applications better, but we are ready for the posting and staffing phase of that. The next couple on here in terms of review and update the human resource policies, creating and implementing clear hiring termination policies, revising the handbooks, those types of things. Those are all things that we're hoping to, in all honesty, now that we know this position's coming on board, sort of use that person's expertise as we do them. I think in the beginning of the year, as we mentioned, with the hiring procedures, we did make some changes to those, updated some of those forms. And as we approach the end of the year, we'll continue to try to make sure we have our termination form sort of updated in terms of termination in any way, basically the end of the year checkout type forms, those types of things in place. But we'll want to continue to refine those with the human resource person. And revising faculty and employee handbooks, I'll talk a little more specifically about some changes we're going to have to incorporate in those as we go forward. Developing clear job descriptions for all positions. I was able to reach out to a larger school district in the region, and they were able to provide us with a large sample of their current job descriptions. And so what we're going to hopefully do is pull from those as we can, so that we can try to update job descriptions, particularly as we post them. I will try to make sure that we, one of the things we'll try to do probably by the end of this year at least is to try to make sure that we work with the administrative team to try to review at least the non-union job descriptions, because those ones are a little bit easier than the union job descriptions, and we can try to get those current to reflect sort of, review what review what the expectations are, and not only that, but what are some of those additional duties that the positions have kind of assumed over time that people might not even, understand, that we need to make sure we clarify that. The training protocol and mandatory trainings, I'll talk about that in a minute when we talk about OSHA. Evaluations, I think that we've done a much better job with evaluations with the teaching staff. I think we still need to work on the instructional assistants, custodians, and those other bargaining units for the evaluations. And we'll try to address those in subsequent contract negotiations as those units come up. And the long-term professional development plan, we're working on that as well. We have a clear professional development plan for this year. But I think identifying some of the other surveys and stuff we're going to do, I think will help us pinpoint some areas that we might need to work on for some of our other bargaining units as well. I mean, a lot of times, I think part of what we're trying to capture with this is that a lot of times when we start thinking of things like professional development and evaluation, so often we think of the teachers, but there's a lot of other employees as well that we need to make sure that we are developing and evaluating and tightening up some of those areas. So I think, we're working on it. I think we've made little steps in each area. I think the biggest one that we've made the most strides on so far is the human resource manager position and trying to get that filled. And I think once that one comes on board, a lot of these other ones will fall in place as we use the expertise. So one of the specific updates I want to talk about was the Massachusetts Department of Labor Standards, or the OSHA. So there's some, after the general kind of description here, there's I think it's about 6 pages of stuff I gave you. Yeah, I'm sorry.
I was reading my own notes here.
Yeah.
Real quick, you mentioned the contract, the last union contracts. Is that this year? They're up. Is it this June? Just July? Kind of the catch-all that we did the teaching.
Yeah. So the secretary and custodial contract, the non-teaching personnel contract, is up this year.
This
Yep.
year, okay.
Yep. And then that's the one that we're kind of figuring out the full strategy for, and then the instructional assistants would be up the following year.
The one we just did?
We just did teachers, so instructional assistants, the one we did a couple years ago, yeah, that's only 3 years, so.
Wow, that was 2 years ago. Okay, yeah. Yeah,
So-
that's right.
Yeah,
Okay,
as soon as you
so-
finish one, you get right back on the next.
All
So.
right. Yeah, okay, thanks.
So the OSHA update, there's about, I think I said there's about 6 pages or so I put in here. That includes some training requirements. So just so everyone knows, you might have heard that it was Chapter 44 of the Acts of 2018 amended the General Law, Chapter 149, Section 6.5, basically saying that the Department of Labor Standards, who is always overseeing basically the municipal government in terms of workforce safety, is now going to be enforcing OSHA standards. Okay, so a lot of people are saying like, oh, this means that now OSHA is, it used to be towns and municipalities were exempt from OSHA, and basically we still are exempt from OSHA, the agency. But the agency that does oversee us, the Department of Labor Standards, is now going to enforce the OSHA standard, which is a higher standard than they had been doing in the past. Okay, so that law goes into effect February 1st. I attended a recent training. Russ has gone to a couple. During the half-day professional development day last week on Friday, the 25th, we gave sort of an overview to the teachers to explain kind of what this law might mean for them and share some of the classroom checklists and those types of things they can look at. There are a lot of things that aren't major changes. I mean, there are a lot of things that we've had to do anyway. They're part of the Department of Labor standards. I would say that one of the main changes, I think it's going to more significantly impact like the DPW, our custodian and grounds areas, those types of places. They're real big on looking at the equipment, making sure that you have the appropriate safety on all your equipment, the right kind of tag type safety measures so that things don't start up accidentally, those types of things. So there's work to do with it. We'll continue to go through it. We've already identified some things when we talked to the teachers. One of the big things they talked about is not not standing on furniture to hang stuff on a wall. Well, okay, that's easy enough to tell them to do, but then that means we've got to have some like step stools and ladders available. So, little things like that we're working on, we'll be working on. They're not a big difference between the Department of Labor Standards and OSHA is that, OSHA, the federal government's agency, the OSHA agency, the enforcement agency, their number one, if they come in and they find a violation, typically the response is a fine, right? So you would get fined automatically. The Department of Labor Standards is not, they're not going to fine you initially. They wouldn't do any type of action like that for a while. Their first response is going to be kind of like when we do civil rights reviews or special ed reviews, where you're going to have a corrective action plan and you're going to have like a window to get things adjusted. So we're working on it. Russ and I have already identified a few things that we know we need to change, and we're trying to look at, or things we might need to update. And we're looking at some, the costs and the alternatives for how to move forward with that. And I'd say one big one that you see a lot in schools is you're not allowed to use like extension cords as permanent wiring. And we got some places in the schools where over the years there's almost like a projector mounted that might have an extension cord running through the ceiling tile. We're not allowed to have that. So we know we don't have to like rip them all out tomorrow, but we know at some point when we do have a visit that's something we're going to have to correct. So we're already starting to think about what is the cost-effective way to address those concerns, and how might we go about that, and making sure that we have everything lined up so we can start working on that process. So that's just one thing, and you can see there's a whole list of different types of training requirements and different things that we'll need to go through. So I thought it was appropriate to lump this in here because this is all part of like the human resource stuff, especially with when we talk about those professional development plans and mandatory trainings. These are all things we're going to need to incorporate as we move forward, and these regulations are just taking effect now.
Any questions for Dr. Meyer regarding the HR part of the update on the strategic plan?
One last thing I'd say, they do recommend you make a health, safety and health committee. And I do think that at first, when I first went to the training and talking about the safety and health committee, I thought, should we make a new committee for this? Is this a new like advisory committee? But then the more I thought about it and the more I kind of digged into some of this stuff, there is a big overlap with like our crisis response and our existing safety committee. So I think it might be something that we might just need to look at the composition of our current safety committee, and we might be able to just add a couple more people from the, what they would refer to as like the labor side, not just the management side, to that committee so that we can kind of incorporate some of the additional things.
Thoughts, questions? Go ahead.
Yeah, on that one, I'm fine. I think that's a great idea.
So I have a question about that
Okay.
then. Just, do you envision that as a departmental, sort of a school department type of committee, or would it make sense to look at that from a municipal perspective? Whereas because those regulations would probably, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if they would have impact for the town as well, where the school department may be going in one direction and the town may not be there, and it shares the wealth in terms of where we're looking at.
Yeah, I haven't had many conversations with, Mike or like Chris McGowan or anyone about what their thoughts are on this law yet. So I think that might be something to explore do we want to have some sort of almost town level
Well,
committee?
again,
that looks at that?
under an HR director for the town, it makes sense to.
Yeah, but I do think, regardless, I think we might still want to, just basically incorporate maybe some more, essentially just union representation on our existing safety committee, and then some of these issues we'll be able to address and bring up, the school-specific ones we'll be able to address there. But I think you're right, some of the major ones or trainings that we're all many departments in town are going to need, we might be able to piggyback all that together.
Steve, on the human resource side, we had talked about this initially when that first came up. I don't remember where we left it off as far as the hiring of it would, I know is this going to be very similar to the facilities director, would be kind of a joint committee or joint
That's my
interview
understanding,
process,
yeah.
and then kind of whittle it down to you and Mike Ward or something on that idea?
That's my understanding. I think Mike and I talked about that, but I think originally that's what we had talked about, getting, probably having at least one of the school committee member on at least the initial committee, and then kind of going, similar.
Very similar.
Yeah. Perfect. But I will, the first thing we're going to do is at least get it posted, and then I'll try to have more conversations with Mike about the composition of the committee. So I'm sure that is something we'll come back and ask you for, All right, so that's, pretty much an update on the human resources. Also included in here, there are 2 surveys. These are both drafts. The first one is from the District Environment Committee, a survey to give to, parents, community members, about, just sort of, basically the charge in the strategic plan was to look at, do we have a welcoming environment, and then, what are some things we might be able to change or improve to make it more welcoming. And so our Welcoming Environment Committee met, when did we meet? Last week?
Wednesday.
Last Wednesday. And we had some good discussions about, really what did we mean by a welcoming environment in general. There were some things I think, I kind of put this draft of this survey together just so we would have a starting point for that committee. And I focused a lot on, I think, kind of communication, right? Communication between like the school level, the superintendent level. But there were other things that we really brought up, that committee brought up. So right now, we're in the process of trying to get some feedback on the survey. We're going to probably, update this, and I think our next meeting is at the end of the month, 27th or so.
Yep.
So we're probably looking, hopefully, maybe in March or so, we'll be able to get this survey out and start gathering some input, and hopefully have some recommendations by the end of the year so that we can maybe put some things into place in time for next year. So I think even in our discussion, we had some ideas that we already know we can kind of, regardless of what the survey says, they're just good ideas. I know we talked about like more TV displays in the entryways of the buildings and those types of things to kind of showcase more about what's going on. Those are things that I think are just good ideas that we can, kind of assume we're going to probably want to go with.
Any questions on the surveys?
The second survey, though, is a different one. It's an athletics feedback survey, and that's, I know that was something that, with the new position of the part-time athletic director, we wanted to try to use an opportunity to try to gather some more feedback and use that feedback to try to figure out the next steps we need to do to improve our athletics programs. So this is once again, it's another draft survey that just kind of put together. And, I think it tries to look at the different areas, different things like the uniforms and equipment, or the communication, or the coach's demeanor and knowledge, those types of things, scheduling of the events. Try to get some feedback on that. It's kind of intentionally not too specific, so that, it doesn't turn into, I'm not asking you to like give a critique of your individual coach necessarily, but it's also open-ended enough that if you feel that that's something that you need to share, I think you can. So that there's some way we can aggregate that. So, because you might, if I think about it, if you're someone who, if you're the parent of, you have multiple students who played multiple sports, you're going to check off a lot of those, and then you're going to answer these questions. But your kind of Likert scale there, your 1 to 10 might not, is going to maybe be your average of the experience. But then in your comments, you might specify, hey, I would have said an 8, but I dropped it to a 6 because of whatever, that kind of stuff. So, and in the end, we tried to, are there any other sports or opportunities you'd like to see us offer, and describe those. So, I think this kind of captures most things. I don't know if anyone has any specific comments or questions on either of those surveys.
Quinny?
I just kind of to your point, like so I think that would kind of muddy the data a little bit if you just look at, say a kid plays 3 sports. Say if you might have a great experience in 2 sports programs and a not so great experience in another one. So like how would, the way it is right now, the way that this is set up right now, and maybe that from what you're saying, that might be somewhat deliberate, but I don't think you'd be able to get you wouldn't get clear feedback, because you play 3 sports and then you only have a 1 to 10 on your overall experience. I think the point kind of at least my understanding of this kind of foundation, this initial feedback that we're trying to get to help the AD out in his first year, is to just get an idea of what at least what the perception is. Not that perception is may not even be correct, but at least to find out what the perception is. And I just, engineered, like, you want data, you just want to have like good information. So I think we should think about, I don't think it'd be the worst thing in the world if where there is a way to tie the feedback to a specific sport as opposed to just having it be like.
Or perhaps, if I may, does it make sense to tweak it a little to ask parents to complete a survey based on their experience with each child, rather than sort of a family survey where it becomes more of an amalgam? Does that get at what you're?
Or for each sport, because if they could have one child that plays 3
Right.
sports.
Yeah.
Oh, sure,
Right.
sure.
Yeah, my only, I think this is great. My only thought was like, even if say a parent or a student actually wanted to like convey like a complaint, and they played 3 sports, but there's only 1 sport that they have a issue with, and they put a negative score. Well, now that negative score reflects poorly on the other 2 sports where the student or the parent may have had a good experience. It just lumping it all into one, I just think kind of muddies the data.
I think,
a little bit.
if we did it, even if I did it, I'm just trying to think of, we're using Google Survey here, so I'm trying to think about what I can do in that program, but
Just put 3, if there's anything that would be specific to a specific sport, no kid's gonna play more than 3 sports, right? It's not.
No, what I'm saying, to Tina's point, I think is all you gotta do is just put it out at the end of each season, rather than wait till the end of the year. If you do
Right, if you did it for each season.
Then even if the kid plays 3 sports, he's not playing 3 at the same time,
Right.
so you'd get it for, put it out there for I don't know how long, 2 weeks or whatever at the end of each season.
Right.
And then it would kind of answer, what
But
you're
for
saying.
now, what I could do for now, I think you're right, moving forward, it would be good to do but I could almost make like 3 sections, basically. Like a fall section, a spring section, a winter section, a spring section. And basically you answer the questions, we can look at them, some you might not have to, overall experience, we might not have to do that 3 times. But for some of those other ones, we could do it by season.
Right.
So you pick the sport, and then you answer your questions, and then do that. Okay.
Right.
Go ahead.
And, just piggybacking on what others have said, is there a reason why we wouldn't also, so you do it per season, but be able to identify the actual sports team so that we're able to?
Yeah, so I think if we did, so I had that, like, which sports have you had the most involvement? I think when we do, if we break it up by season, we can split that list up, so they click which sport.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Do those Google surveys have drop-down boxes? Can you put them in? So, like, I mean, the only thing I'm thinking of is just one way to do it would be, if there is any portion of this that is to a particular sport, you have 3 1 to 10 rows.
Yeah.
And then you have a drop-down box for each one. So you could say, first one, click football, what I thought of that. Second one may be empty if there's no other sports played, but if you play 2 sports or 3 sports, then you fill out those other ones. And I think with that, you'll get, if you have 3 lines to capture 3 different sports, I don't think you can ask for much more than that.
All right. So we'll try to do some tweaking with maybe ways to get a little bit more sport-specific type data, and then but as far as the content of the questions, does that seem okay? Like we hit the different areas? Okay.
Yep.
So
I had no problem with that at all.
So what we want to do is then just make sure that we're maybe breaking it, fine-tuning it enough so that, if a kid really had a great experience in one sport and a terrible experience in the other, we're not just getting a 5 and trying to make sense of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the only other thing, this might be a good opportunity just to piggyback on this, to ask open-ended question about what new sports would you think, not that.
Yeah, I think I have that in the last question.
Oh, it's in the last
Is there
question?
any other
Sorry.
sports or opportunities you'd like to see? Yeah.
No,
It's a good time to read.
It's no.
I did read it. I
Give
just
him a break.
didn't see
It's
that
tucked
one.
underneath the
Oh, okay. All
the
right.
clip. Any other questions?
No.
So just one quick question, and I'm assuming the answer is yes, but as a Google survey, if it goes out to the community, will it translate to the languages that it needs to, so that it's representative of all of our
Yeah,
parents?
so it can, but I think for both these surveys, I think what I'll do is probably have, when we actually get it out there electronically, we'll probably create specific links where we've actually had them translated so that we know it came across, it was a good translation.
Yeah.
And then, for at least to get it in Spanish and maybe Portuguese or something like that. But then if...
particularly on the welcoming environment survey.
Exactly, yeah. But then if there's, other languages, they might need to use Google Translate or
Sure.
something like that.
Okay.
But at least some of the major ones, we'll try to get it translated.
Okay.
All right, so thank you for that. I think the last thing I have under this section is just the high school program of studies. So I know Mr. Hastings is going to kind of review that. You should have, it would have been kind of an insert in your packet. You had the revised program of studies, and you also kind of had the cheat sheet that sort of tells you what was changed.
Thank you. Thank you for all of this, Mr. Hastings.
Okay, just so you know, the updates are basically just that, they're updates. It's grammar, it's wording, it's not any change of a course, it's not, so those things are basically just descriptions of it. Nothing has changed as far as content goes. On the other part, though, is the part that I really want to present, and that's the changes and additions. And 2 weeks ago, this evening, we had a presentation from Dr. Meyer, and most of this was covered. So if I'm going to jump around a little bit, because my cheat sheets are really a cheat sheet as far as trying to do this as best I can in order to keep everybody involved. The first one you'll see, the removal of EDL1, the addition of co-taught inclusion. So basically what we're trying to do, you'd be right on top of this, because instead of using a lot of these, the format has been resource rooms. And we're starting next year, I should say, we're trying to move more of those students into more of inclusion as often and as best we can. So one first step was to take our usual, our EDL freshman English teacher, and we're going to have her move in with our college prep English class, and she will co-teach. So the students who were coming in from the 8th grade to 9th grade, who would have usually been, normally been assigned an EDL class, self-contained, so to speak, will now be working with the college prep students, and it will be co-taught. So that's a new approach, and hopefully this is what we're going to be developing as we go along, next year and then another year, and hopefully bring that whole concept in. Okay, we have had inclusion over the years. This is a new concept of doing away more of the EDL, English for Daily Living, into a college prep class. Okay, the removal of the Algebra 1A. What we've had over the past few years is, if a student, for instance, just finishes his or her Algebra 1 and had below a 70, and this was all tied into MCAS, was below 70, 69 and 68, they would take the the algebra again, or they would take this Algebra 1A. And really, when we looked at it, to see, we've had this course for the past, I'm going to say 5-6 years, and we realized that this isn't the way to go. It's almost a punishment when a student has a 68 or 69. So we brought in another level of algebra. We do have the CP, the College Prep Algebra 1, we have geometry, and then we have the Algebra 2. But this is going to be called Algebra Concepts. So it's on page 38 here. I know that like I said, I've been jumping around.
Okay.
And it's a description of that algebra concepts. And also, as you see, right above that is a math seminar course. That would be a piggyback to that in most cases, okay? We have had an MCAS course, half-year course for math. This is what we're going to be working on instead. So the algebra concept with the math seminars will be preparing students to move on, hopefully, on to, after that, they would be ready for MCAS. As you can see, there is a prerequisite. So this is maybe the student in the 8th grade who has had the pre-algebra class as opposed to an algebra. Okay, is that something that we're clear on?
And it's all, some strategy to just really make sure that a lot of this to support, make sure our special education students have access to, content certified teachers, and making sure that we're giving them every opportunity to have a pathway to college, and just really trying to provide as many options and flexibility as we can to meet the needs of all learners.
I'm going to group together, if you could jump with me here on this. See, the added honors statistics and probability, the added U.S. history, honors U.S. 2, and then also the ELA elective courses. First of all and foremost, we would like to be able to offer that honors statistic and probability. Right now, we have a college prep stats and we have an AP stats. So we could run a level in between of a honors probability and statistics. And also we have the U.S. History 1 and we have the AP U.S. History. We have a U.S. History, regular CP U.S. History 2 as well. Now, the reason I put those together is that's strictly going to depend on registration. We tried running this Honors U.S. about 4 or 5 years ago, and, we're not Brockton High with, 1,500, 2,000 kids and 75 teachers. It's limited as far as, the amount of teachers, the amount of courses you can run in a given day. So when we ran the U.S. History a few years ago, you were seeing maybe 5 kids in an Honors U.S. 2 and 28 in a CP Honors U.S. 2. So we're going to look and see. Yes, there's students who would be able to handle an Honors U.S. 2, but we have to see if there's going to be enough students in that class to run that. And the same thing with the statistics as well. Is there enough students in that middle ground between the the college prep stats and the AP stats? A lot's going to depend on that. And then the ELA electives, those are some classes that we would develop. We haven't developed those. I think the journalism is still on the books. But again, that could be tied into how many students are registered for our ELA courses. Continuing on with that, I'm just trying to see. we will be adding a French 2. So that's really good news. Evan McKillop brought in French 1 this past year. It's a great class, a great number there. So next year, we know we're going to go to a French 2, and we know we're going to offer the French 1. And again, what numbers may be, there may be 2 courses of French 1, there may be, for the student interest. So that's been very successful. It's nice to have a second language again, and it's nice that the first year it was very successful and the interest is there. We already know we haven't started registration. We'll be doing so in another week or so. Students in that French 1 are already talking about French 2, so that's good.
Guys,
Yeah, go ahead.
They don't, I know they have Spanish in the middle school. The first introduction they get to French is here though, right? They don't have any.
You're right,
I know,
yeah.
I shouldn't have to ask, but.
Yeah, it is. Like I said, at one time when we came up here, when we were opening this building, we had Spanish, French, and Latin. And then French just sort of phased out, and we kept the Latin for a while. And Davidson was here. He retired. We asked him to come back and teach a class or two, and we kept him alive with us. And then we were, I'm saying 3 or 4 years of just Spanish. So this is a real plus in bringing back that French too. But yes, this is the first time they get French. Right.
I know, Mr. McKillop has really, I think it's almost like reinvigorated him, this challenge. And I know he previously had some, I think he actually started as more of like a middle level or elementary level, like foreign language teacher. He was teaching Spanish and French at that level, then kind of transitioned into English. And then, so he's, so we're in a nice situation where, this year he taught that as kind of his one course out of subject, even though he had the experience. But he's working on securing that certification, which is great, because then we'll have, for next year, we should have a dual certified person there, which will allow us to kind of build the program. Because that's always a challenge with building back a language or something like this is, eventually when you can offer like a French 1, French 2, French 3, you'll have plenty for a full teacher's worth, but kind of getting those kids up to French 2 and French 3 takes a little bit, so.
So, were you gonna?
Go ahead. Go first.
So, okay, thank you. So long range, we're assuming the trajectory would continue
I
to
hope so,
as
yeah.
many levels of the course as we could. Would that also go down as well at some point?
Down to the middle school if we need to.
But it seems
yeah.
like, to my own personal experience, that the Spanish is going really well at the middle school.
Yeah.
So, I didn't know if that was something as well that, long term.
Yeah, I think if we,
Yeah,
I think once
more
it's
successful, though,
established, yeah.
as it grows, and as it grows, you're right, it grows both ways.
Yeah.
It grows as you advance, and it also should be growing in the bases, the early years as well. Yeah. Yeah.
Did you have something?
No, you really were touching on what I was going to say, but, continue to grow it so that, if the state requirements switch from 2 in a foreign language to 3, then we keep growing that so that maybe even with the Latins that you have 2 levels of it, grow that as well to 3 levels.
And to follow up on that, Mike, you're right, they're asking for 2, the state requires 2, but some of these colleges are asking for 3. So we're trying
Within
to,
the same area.
right, exactly. So this gives them an opportunity as well. So, we have spoken about this, and we're in the last year of engineering the future for a technology for the MCAS. So next year we begin with physics. Physics will be the MCAS, and it will be every student is taking it as a freshman. So what we have had in the course here over the last few years is we've had a half-year, second semester, sort of an MCAS support technology engineering course, preparing students who may be struggling, looking at their grades in their earlier years. So we've added, basically just in place of that technology MCAS, we've added the Applied Intro to Physics MCAS support course. Some of the students that we may have seen through their middle school years and their science grades, looking at their earlier scores, they may be assigned to this program, this class, which again, like we did with the algebra 1A, the algebra concept, this could piggyback their physics class. Okay? Now, the big one, and I know that we did talk about this, and a lot of it is on page 58, and that's the reestablishing, the reconfiguration of the engineering, the technology department. And on the bottom, as of the end of this year, with the MCAS, we will no longer be offering, per se, the Engineering of the Future course. But we're taking areas of that, and the Engineering Innovation course will be a required course for all freshmen, a technology course with a description here, a new description of it, and that will be a requirement. But they will not be taking an MCAS on that, okay? So the engineering innovation, there's no need for me to read through that. I know that you all.
I think it's going to be, I think that course is going to be a really great course. I
Yeah.
think it's a type of hands-on thing that people are going to be students will be engaged in. And I think it's really what the technology course probably should have been all along, but
Right.
with such an MCAS focus, it wasn't able to be this
Yeah.
engaging.
That engineering, that technology MCAS that those freshmen take has, the spirit of things, the electricity and, everything. And it's like going through it just to finish it for the MCAS. This is going to be at a different pace and a different amount of, let's say, quarters or hands-on projects, as opposed to trying to beat the system, so to speak, or the test, don't teaching for the test. So this will be something that's going to be and they've worked hard, and they're developing this, and it's going to be all set for the year. And also those other two, the Engineering Design 1 and the Engineering Design 2, we have had engineering courses, Mr. Morrison's courses. These have been updated to include robotics as part of the curriculum, which we have not seen before. And also the biggie on the next page, and I know you know this was coming down because we've talked about it, and that's the first robotics course for credit. He's worked on this, the hours that will be required, the rubrics are all in place for this. We have had similar, let's say, programs here at Clinton High School. We've had the community classroom where students go out in the afternoon and do jobs. We do have a senior project where students go out a couple of times a week. So this is a hands-on. It's also giving credit for the robotics program. We have 4 teachers on site. We have hours beyond your usual classroom hours. And we also have the engineers from NIPRO working with us on this. So, and as I said, there is a rubric, there's a way of grading this and credit for this. So it's been something that we've talked about. It's a half-year course. And hopefully this is good. It's something new, it's something exciting. And as you know, there was 60 students who showed up for this the first night, so it's still very successful. A couple of other things right there at the bottom. Electronic music, that's brand new. We're just signing it up. And I think it's a half-year course. It was struggling right now to get students into that because it's so new and it came at at a later time. So we're promoting it as we speak, and I can't elaborate a lot on that because electronic music is not really something that I know how to play my iPod. What?
I think she's been exposing a lot of the 8th graders to this type of stuff as part of their specials over there.
Yeah.
So they've gotten a little taste of some of this, like designing ringtones and doing that kind of stuff. So I think it's almost in her new kind of role between the two buildings, there's going to be some more interest.
Students would relate. They know. And we actually, on Friday during lunches, we had the running sign up for electronic music, and we actually had some playing, and so I think the interest will sooner or later will kick on. Okay, and also that very last one, the accounting course. Mrs. Walsh is just incredible with this, but she went out and we did an articulation, so to speak, with Mount Wachusett and Quincy. When she came in here 3 or 4 years ago, she brought the accounting program back with the software to go with it, and we're on an accounting 2. She does a great job. and she worked with Quincy and the Mount to get an articulation. So students in this course will have credits towards the Quincy or the Mount if they complete this program and go there right away. It's similar to what we've talked about, and we also still have on the books our own agreement, open, contact with Quincy. Students will be going around, the guidance counselors will be going around to our sophomore English classes next week. And I've talked to the guidance counselors about still that offer from Quincy, where a student can take a course for first semester, second semester, junior year, first, second, their senior year, and then go to Quincy with those credits, and then transfer to a four-year school with credits. So that, along with Mrs. Welsh's accounting, are really like the whole concept of taking college courses and being able to earn credits in high school is something that we're starting with on this. So those are some of the, as I mentioned, the first ones, updates, are basically a lot of just wording and what have you.
Thank you. Questions on the program of studies?
Just two questions. My first question is, with the elective classes, they're all CP level, is that correct?
Yeah, yes, everything is CP, unless it's an honors or some of them are way different, like
I think
health and phys ed.
Phys ed don't count
They're
toward your,
the only
GPA
ones.
or something like that.
Yeah.
And then,
But so the weight on those are different.
and then what we classify as electives are CP, so that,
Yeah, they're
weight
not
wise.
hurting you, yeah.
so it's not an unfair advantage for one class versus another when it comes to electives, that.
No,
Correct.
And then
except for the phys ed and
And then my only other question is, so for your journalism, your public speaking, creative writing, what was the philosophy why you picked to do intro as far as in the titles of those versus?
Well, I think the reason is, these have never really been, they have not been offered. What this comes out of is we talked about, if, let's say we have an English teacher who we are still teaching French. One thing, though, we have looked at is our freshman seminar. Some of the students really, if you're coming in from the 8th grade and you're, high grades and high-ranking student in English, maybe you don't need the freshman seminar. Maybe you can test out of that. So there may then leave some half-year courses in the English department.
And I see the need for that.
Yeah.
And I like the classes that you selected. I guess my question is.
Well, I would say.
Why intro, not just college?
Yeah, I think the pilots.
I'm trying to think as a kid for a second. So if
Yeah.
you put intro in it, you don't want to discourage maybe your top-ranking kid from taking that class. So that you keep it as.
Yeah.
So you could just call it journalism on your transcript,
Yeah,
and it's gonna be, it's gonna.
it's, how much of a possibility is that right now? We can't even, almost telling the English department, let's see first. That's what about the registrations. And then, if it's just a title right now, intro or,
It's just
stuff the history of rock and roll.
No,
That's Casey Kasem, he's teaching that.
It's an
Bring it by
exciting
Tetris back.
program of studies, and one I think that is,
Dick Clark.
seems like, to me, a combination of generated from student interest and, in a progression of an approach to some very high-level learning, so. Any other questions on the program of studies?
I have one question.
Yep.
I'm sorry, I keep
Sure.
asking. So when you cut a class, is there,
When you what?
when you can't.
Eliminate.
You mentioned how.
Oh, okay, they meant to skip class.
We could cut that.
That's the handbook. That's the name of the handbook. Go ahead, Mike.
What I mean, though, is you mentioned earlier that if there wasn't enough interest for a class, that you wouldn't be able to run it.
Right.
Is there a number that's selected?
Well, let's just say that the U.S. history too. If there's 5 students in there, or 6 students, no, I don't think they're. We usually play with the number of 10. Because. But a couple of years ago, we ran Spanish 5 with 3 students because we didn't want to lose it. You know, we fought to keep that, to get our students because, you know, so, you know, or an AP course,
I
there's
think-
only 3 or
yeah.
4 students.
I mean-
So it's something,
And unfortunately, I think it starts becoming a numbers game and what you have for other sections and other courses. And sometimes you might be able to sneak and run a course with 8 and other years,
Yeah.
it might not make any sense.
I mean, we had terrorism for the longest time with, you know, 8, 9, 10 students.
And I understand.
I'm sorry, the
you
course,
have to-
yeah.
You have to cut off at some point.
Yeah.
Not cut a class at some point.
Yeah.
But if we do,
Yeah.
are we giving our students that maybe that's their need for?
Well, and don't
an
forget the
option
other
as
thing
far as
too is, Mike,
online or-
if, let's say we had 3 students who want to take an honors US through, we can't fit it. We still have a lot of slots of VHS.
That's right.
Yeah, we still have that to offer.
So they have alternative option of.
Or if we ever have to dig in our pockets and find out, you know, Ingenuity or
Ingenuity
something like
course,
that, we have
So we have alternative-
distant
Yeah,
learning.
yeah.
We have distant learning available, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yeah,
I just have,
Any
is
other
the,
questions?
sure, go ahead, Eddie.
is the intro to journalism, is there any plans for that to be collaborating with the digital media department?
It could, yeah. It's been, that has been on the books for a long, long time, but we've just had never brought it back. But that's something that could very well do, or, you know, I know that we do send some of the senior project. We work closely with the item on material, so.
Yeah, because I know in the past Paul's mentioned sometimes they have a tough time getting kids to either do play-by-play for like sporting events or like do like a news program or something like that. It seems like this would be like a nice.
That could be a great tie-in.
Yeah.
I mean, we, you know, we haven't had I don't know if it's been a while since we had the news station, the news show, the Revolution.
Yeah.
But they wrote all of that. They were
Right.
writing all of that, so, you know, that's something it's a great idea. That's a good concept, yeah. Joel, did you ask something?
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I thought you were asking.
Do you want I mean, as this is kind of a written document that outlines our curriculum, do you want to make a motion to accept
I
it?
mean, we certainly can, in terms of an endorsement. I mean, I don't think we're required to. I mean, I think it's certainly worth the vote of confidence for Clinton High School and all of the efforts that they've put into the program of studies. So I'm happy to entertain a motion to accept the program of studies.
I just have one question.
Sure.
And I just didn't see it. Do we have anything? I may have missed it. Do we have anything that is comparable to like a current affairs type course?
No, we-
Kind of like more geared towards.
The only thing that we
Seniors.
had was the,
History of world terrorism.
yeah, the history, actually, yeah, that's it. It's funny though, I know that civics is becoming a big
We
thing
will,
now.
with the new bill, we'll have to be introducing more civic stuff
Yeah.
into it. And I
Yeah,
think we'll
that's
see how that
something-
plays out, yeah.
In the future, I think it would be nice
Mr. Philbin's class.
Yeah.
John Philbin's class.
4 years. Or,
He's a great guy.
yeah,
Missed the game.
especially your senior year when after that year you're
Yeah.
you're out in the
Coach.
world.
Yeah.
It'd be nice to see what we can to make sure that as many kids as possible kind of get educated on like what's going on today. History is
Yeah,
great.
and it hasn't
but-
been that long. I mean, we have offered it since we've been up here,
Yeah.
but it, you know, when the requirements of, you know, US, world, 2 years of US, and then
Right.
then
I
we
think-
brought in, I think when we brought in the world, the history of world terrorism, that kind, and the psychology and the criminal justice, those are, you know, in that same department. So I think it became what was of interest, you know.
But I do think, I think that's something that you could expect to see in the future, because we are gonna have to do, like I said, there's the new civics bill where we have to do some projects in 8th grade, we have to do some in the high school, those types of things. So I think as we kind of navigate the new history frameworks and the new history civics requirement, you know, that could be something that you could see come back.
But that would be for the 2021 program of studies.
Most likely, I think we would probably, I mean, honestly, the new frameworks go all the way up to the Trump administration now, so
Yep.
they've changed those quite a bit. But yeah, I would think as far as a formal class, I would think it might be for the following year. But I think we will have to start implementing some of the civics projects and those types of things this year as part of the other classes.
Can we have a motion to accept the Clinton High School program of studies for 2019, 2020?
Years go by.
I'll make a motion to accept the.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion being made and seconded. Any further discussion on the program of studies? There being none, all those in favor?
All right,
Yeah,
thank
we do
you.
this- We translate it into Spanish too.
Great, thank you.
All right.
All right, under Chairperson's report, do we have anything new? I don't know that.
Curriculum
the
and safety have
committees-
not met. Marketing has not met.
Okay.
Tina, I know attended the Welcoming Environment Committee, kind of as a marketing committee representative, but it's not a marketing committee meeting per se, so.
Anything under old business?
So I just want to bring up two things that I handed out to you, if that's okay. Separate from your packet, yours is probably black and white, but you have something like this. It's like a budget printout. So the governor released his budget on last, I'm going to say it was Wednesday, and then I was able to go to the Thursday. I was at the MASS midwinter meeting, and had a chance to kind of get some takes from different people on the governor's budget. But this is and then there was a commissioner's follow-up phone call on the budget on Friday. So we looked at some of his numbers. So these are all numbers. The first page here is the numbers that reflect basically our cherry sheets, our preliminary aid, based on what the governor has proposed. So if you look at the comparison number, you can see if you go down, it says comparison to FY19, and you go down, it says enrollment, foundation budget, required district contribution, it says Chapter 70 aid. You go across, you can see in FY19, so this current fiscal year, we got $12,409,849 in Chapter 70 aid. Next year, we'll be getting, we're penciled in for $13,186,850, which is an increase of $777,001, or a 6.26%, which is huge. By comparison, I think last year we got just about 2% increase, and it was about $200,000. So that's a substantial increase to the aid that the town receives. The required district contribution, it went up $400,000, but the town has been paying above minimum anyway, so the town doesn't necessarily, we'll work with the town to figure out what that number is that they'll contribute. So then that's where historically, the next page is there. I gave you there's two printouts. These are just more historical information. One is if you look at the top, one is for Clinton, and then one is just the state average. So one page is Clinton, one page is state total. And it just shows you basically our per pupil expenditures each year. It shows you our percent over and under net school spending, our minimum required spending. So if you look at, for Clinton, if we look at the Clinton page, you can see in FY18, based on our budgeted amount, we would be 17.3% over the required net school spending. You can see over the last 10 years, that number has fluctuated a little bit, but went up significantly. I think that was the year it got the override, it went up, and then so it's been about 17%. If you look on the other sheet, though, just as a comparison, the state average is 26%. So the state average is 26% above net school spending, and right now we were at 17. And then that has some of our per pupil information broken down all the way back from 08 to 2018 towards the bottom. So that's just, that's more historical information, just kind of some food for thought, but it kind of breaks it down there. I think that it shows that, in recent years, I think the town has been, increasing their percentage over the minimum contribution, which is great. And then the last page I gave you, this is from the Mass Department of Revenue. This is the same type of thing. This is just a cherry sheet for the town from the DOR. And this basically shows you, it's got the same information under education. It shows you basically what our projected Chapter 70 funding would be, our projected tuition reimbursement, charter tuition reimbursement, projected school choice, all that kind of stuff. And then even for the town, it shows like the increases in the government aid, the unrestricted aid, and those types of things. So you can see how the town aid coming in from the state works as well. I'd say that increase in the unrestricted government aid, it's only an increase of about $66,000 or so. But when I look historically, that's about the same, that's roughly the same that they get most years right now. The other thing to remember is these are cherry sheets, they're preliminary, they're based on the governor's budget. Historically, the governor's budget has been the floor. And as it's gone through the House and gone through the Senate, it's typically increased. Even the governor's plan for education funding, he called basically for a full funding of the foundation budget reform recommendations. It's just phased in over a six-year window. So this is like the first step, but he actually has filed a bill similar like the Promise Act in the Senate that establishes targets that would fully fund them. So not only would this be an increase for this year, but if everything falls into place the way it is right now, we should see some substantial increases like this for the next 5 years or so as they work to fund the foundation budget recommendations. So I think it's positive news. I'm hoping that, as we get a chance to work with the FinCom on this, that we'll be able to, find some common ground here. And I think hopefully we should, I think it's positive for us, for our budget, I think, and I think it obviously helps the town budget if we're getting more education aid, so.
And thank you for your advocacy, not only for the Clinton Public Schools, but, your work at a state level to help reform the foundation budget.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where it just reached such a tipping point that so many superintendents and were behind it that it's finally got the attention it needed. And I think it got to the point where there were a lot more towns hitting that breaking point than it wasn't just the, towns that are in poverty, it was a lot of other towns, so. The only other old business was just the lacrosse, I just shared, oh, sorry, go ahead, your question.
I was just looking at the charter school reimbursement and the school choice and how it goes down significantly from 19 to 20, like FY 19 to FY 20. Is that a one-for-one reimbursement just based off less students?
So the school choice, what I would say is that number will probably go up because what we have to file at the end of the year will be what's called, it's basically like a special education adjustment.
Okay.
So this is based right now, that number is going to be based on basically like our head count, right?
So it is.
And then that's one for one. And then as we, towards the end of the year, when we can file some of the other adjustments, normally we'll get kind of an extra payment at the end of the year that would kind of up that a little bit. So it should be comparable to last year. And then the charter tuition reimbursement, that's the way it is right now. That's kind of, you get less reimbursement each year when a kid's there. So as they're there longer, that's what it's based. So
thanks, Steve.
And then I don't expect you to have the answer tonight, but I guess my question is, so Clinton historically the last couple of years has been in the 12,000 range as far as per pupil expenditure, and this increase in Chapter 70 funds would bring us into the 13,000 plus range. I think a question that I'd like to know, and maybe others, as time goes on, when we see these new numbers, is can you share with us later what the state averages for per pupil expenditure for communities? So
like specific communities or for like the state overall?
If you could have, that cherry sheet that we have that has our areas that we are looking towards, but then also the state average, because.
Or the DART comparisons.
That's what I meant.
Yeah, the DART
comparison, because I think, when you look at the numbers and the increase of what we contribute above what we're required to, it looks like a lot. But I think if you look if you look at comparison to what we're given per pupil, it's not, competitive in many communities.
Yeah, you can see right here, even like the FY 18 for the state, the average is 14,484, and for Clinton, it's 12,726.
So just so that, that's pointed out, because, we're trying to bring up our number.
Yeah.
We know we can't do it overnight, but, right now, we're not competitive.
Right.
And we did hear that from the teachers and other people that have shared that information with us.
And then, and I think that's the point, we gotta, they're increasing the education aid to increase education spending, and we gotta make sure that that's not lost in the budget process, so.
But I think that town contribution says a lot, where
No, it does.
we only contribute 17% more than we need to, but the state average is 26.
Yeah.
That says a lot right there.
Right.
So,
Excellent points all.
But we have seen that data before, where it showed, the area schools and what they're,
And I actually have some, I know
per pupil spend.
Karen got a lot, ran a lot of that. Karen got, gets me a lot of these sheets. She does a nice job doing that for him. And I have some of the surrounding areas of these exact same sheets sitting on my desk. I just didn't, I didn't put them all in the packet just because I didn't, but we can look at, I can get you some of those numbers. Yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
The only other one I was just going to point out was the lacrosse flyer. And just a quick update is, I know Athletic Director Smith was doing some signups today in the cafeteria. So he emailed me because he knew the meeting. I actually invited him to see if he wanted to come to the meeting and talk about lacrosse. He couldn't make it tonight. He's actually going to the Boosters meeting. But he did signups today. He knew I was going to talk about this, and he sent me an email saying that today 5 girls signed up and 4 boys signed up for the lacrosse co-op.
Outstanding.
So,
I
we got.
I was actually thinking about our van, and
Yeah.
at some point, I just thought it might be a little bit of a burden for parents to try to get their students there in the afternoon, and I wasn't sure how much of a financial burden it would be on us to try to offer, if there are a few students that would fit in our van, if it's not being utilized at that time of day, to be able to at least get them there. Maybe the parents could, pick them up
pick them
after
up or
work,
something.
but right after school is kind of a hard time for parents at work.
Yeah.
I just thought,
Yep.
maybe not the first year, but something we could.
Yeah, I mean, we can see, we can try to figure out when we see those, those students and if we are having some different, difficulties with that stuff. I just have to look at the van. I know the van doesn't run into Worcester in the afternoon, but I don't know. But if practice is until 4, maybe it times up well that, he's coming back through town at 3:30, so another 20 minutes isn't the end of the world, It's not like I'd have to bring someone back in to drive the van. You might already be around, so we could look into that. But I think, we'll see. I mean, we've had a lot of other co-ops too, and we don't provide transportation for those. Not saying
Oh, I see.
we shouldn't, but I'm just saying that there's existing co-ops that students have found their way to get there, so.
Well, please extend our, my thanks. I won't speak for the committee, although I think I know the answer, but our thanks to the athletic director for all of his efforts in this regard. I think it's a great, exercise in terms of a pilot and looking at, what student interests are and trying to find that balance between what we can offer and what they're interested in. So I wish the teams and the students all the luck in the world, and I hope it serves as a great exemplar for more athletics that they might, and or other co-ops in other areas that students might be interested in.
And I would just remind that, because when I was talking to John about today, the co-ops are approved for 2 years, so they don't do it just like a one-year co-op. So it's approved for this year, and we'll automatically, it's in effect for next year as well. And then after the 2 years, we would then have to, reassess. But even if we reassess, typically the way it works is if you're part of a co-op, even if the co-op were to go away for whatever reason, you have the right, you can stay in the co-op, like you can be grandfathered in, kind of. But we can look at that. So it's nice for us knowing that not only can we see what we have this year for interest, but then as these kids go through and do it, now we can see how does that translate to next year. We know we're going to be able to do that, and then we can kind of make our plan on where it goes from there.
So if you're in the co-op as a freshman, regardless of what happens to that co-op, you can finish out?
It should be. That's how it's been,
Usually
in all our other experience with it, that's how it's been, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's an MIAA rule.
Yeah, because they don't want to penalize an individual athlete, yeah.
Is it a varsity program, a JV program?
Hudson has a varsity program.
Okay.
They used to have varsity JV, and I believe even a handful of years ago they might have had varsity JV and freshmen. And their numbers have been way down. They're down to basically just having putting together a varsity program. So I think part of their hope might be, and this is all kind of speculation that I've had through secondhand conversations, is that they're hoping to almost be able to build their numbers up again to actually have a JV and varsity program again, so that we could be one full, functional program together. So
That's exciting. Any questions for Dr. Meyer on that? Anything else under new business?
Just, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Do you think for the next meeting, we'll have that feasibility study for the fire station will be complete for the next school committee meeting?
Yeah, we're talking, that's February 11th or something, so yeah, we definitely should. And as I said, it's in its final,
Yeah.
we kind of talked briefly about it.
Yeah.
It's really, that feasibility study is in its final stages. We've had almost kind of final drafts sort of shared with us, and there's some, different things, mostly some things that, Russ kind of picked up and or questioned that we've kind of just had them double check some numbers, and so I think it's very, very close. So I would say I'll get you something on February 11th, even
Yeah.
if they're not calling it a final report, but it should be the final report by then.
That's good. Russ is heavily involved in the feedback and everything.
Yeah,
That's good.
yeah, he's been doing a lot of work on just kind of checking, especially some of their, construction and square footage numbers, and just kind of making sure that everything seems to line up. Yeah.
Anything else under new business? Yes.
And I guess under new business, since Ava was so convincing, can we look at the time on learning to see if that would fit into the elementary program?
Are you up for re-election this year?
Get a recess during this
She's
meeting.
coming at you from the left.
And we'll be doing that anyway pretty soon, is looking at kind of what tweaks we've had some preliminary conversations, but looking at tweaks for like the middle school schedule and the elementary schedule for next year, so we can certainly we can look into those things.
Anything else? Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, everyone.